Stop right there. This is Illiterate. This week we are covering Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. I checked out the Oscar winner's brand new feature film out on Hulu.
And I went from the history of board games to missing persons reports.
Oh, thanks for being with us. My God, what an opportunity it is to do Agatha Christie. Something, again, living up to the title. Don't know anything about this lady, and I can't wait to dive into it. Taylor.
Because she has so much. The Duchess of Death, the Mistress of Mystery, the Queen of Crime. She is...
Whodunit, baby. I mean, she is the one that put it all together. I'm a huge fan of movies like Clue, the old Tim Curry movie. It's one of my favorite movies since I was a little kid. More recently, this one also makes me think of heavily the Rian Johnson film Knives Out. What a fun one, and the whodunit film
for sure
in this genre. But I even like it when the whodunit stuff comes out, even in horror. It comes out in a lot of other blended into other genres. But man, this is straight up whodunit, and we are going to get to why in the world we keep making these things.
Because here's just some craziness. The copies of her works that have been sold are surpassed only by the Bible and the total works of William Shakespeare.
Oh, wow.
That's how many novels, short story collections, plays, everything that she has sold.
Good Lord. And so that's what I mean is like all those other titles I talked about, all that stuff is inspired by all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Whole genre.
Yeah. And not only amount, but also duration. So wrote this play, The Mousetrap, that is the world's longest running play. It has been performed since 1952 continuously, except 2020 when nobody could do anything. That was the only time. But since then, and then,
we
of course,
don't count that.
Yeah, because nobody could do nothing. But also over 30 feature films based on her work, and so many television films and series.
Those are just direct adaptations. I mean, just like think about just how much that this just is in our lexicon. It will never. She's rooted into our culture forever and all time.
Yeah. So jumping right into the context stuff, she's developing this during the golden age of detective fiction, which we discussed around Sherlock Holmes and Enola Holmes. But I still don't know dates before 1950. I don't really...
Gotta look it up.
Conan Doyle and Sherlock were 1887 to 1927. And her first book comes out in 1920. So she's on the tail end of when Sherlock Holmes is ending. She starts 33 years after Doyle's first mention of Sherlock Holmes. So very much in her autobiography, she was still writing in the Sherlock Holmes tradition. It's got all the stuff that he set up of the eccentric detective, the stooge assistant, the Scotland Yard type police detective that outwits, what she does different. We're going to get into that. But first, it very much is intertwined in her life. So I figure it's worth just starting from the bottom, where she comes from and all of the experiences that she has.
Absolutely.
Because what she's known for is all these intricate plots. So born 1890, upper middle class wealth, several houses wintering elsewhere, that kind of thing.
Lovely.
Perfect. She learned to read at age 4 and was educated at home the whole time. She has siblings who are much older, so she's basically an only child. But of course, later she goes to boarding schools in Paris. And like I said, winters in Egypt. And though at this time, in her adolescence, she's watching the polo matches and dancing and shopping and doesn't care about the archaeological wonders and history. This is the courting phase. She gets married in 1914 to a British officer, Archie Christie, hence the last name. And she served in voluntary aid for the Red Cross during World War I. So this is how she gets the start of her knowledge of poisons and ways that you could end people surreptitiously without people knowing, because she's working in the pharmacy and knowing this sort of thing. But also at times it can be very boring because once it's all organized and nothing's happening, she's just sitting around the station. So this is really the start of her detective type writing where, like I said, she loves Arthur Conan Doyle and all his detective junk and writes her first detective novel called The Mysterious Affair at Styles in 1916.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like it. I
This
like a title. She's good titles.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. This is rejected a few times and then was changed how the solution was revealed because it was revealed in a courtroom and then they said, "Oh no, just the editor was like reveal it all together with everyone there in the sitting room or what have you." And then that becomes a big trope. Is the detective kind of laying it out to everyone.
Right. So what, from what I understand, is that this detective genre, the Sherlock-esque
Mhm.
nature of these things is more, we're going all over the city. It's like, come on, Watson, we're going here, we're going all over the place. Whereas her work is much more closed in. It's much more about a setting, about a place and time, and this has happened, and we need to get to the bottom of it pronto.
So definitely, yeah.
Okay.
This is some of her tropes.
Nobody like
Yeah.
it just happened. Nobody moved. That.
That is her to a T. Yeah. So this is a whole subgenre titled now called the closed circle mystery, or another way that people say is cozy detective fiction. Because, like you said,
Mm.
there's a crime very early on.
Mm.
Sometimes the crime has already happened and it's discovered, somebody in the closet
Yes.
dead,
Yes.
and there's limited suspects, but they all have means, motive, and opportunity, and it's more figuring it out rather than searching for the perpetrator that
Right.
we've yet to encounter. So she really, if not solidified, started this trend.
The
And
idea of the murderer is amongst us.
yeah. And nobody else can come in. So this is why it's also called the country house mystery, because it
Mm-hmm.
allows limited access to outsiders and what she knows, characters with an upper class background. We're all at a weekend house party and this happens, or there's a snowstorm and now we can't, so there's no way.
By God, Taylor.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm taking a big detour right here, but we put on a party just like this, where
Very
we
much,
put on.
yeah.
We didn't even talk about this.
Yeah, so like the murder mystery genre, like the dinner theater type stuff
Right.
is all, yeah.
Now you can just buy that in a box, and we like you like really engineered yours, but now it's very easy to just like you can buy the kit or whatever. But like, what a blast that was! But
Yeah.
the dinner party.
Exactly, yeah. And this is where in this first book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, Hercule Poirot, he is the star and then one of her primary, if not her primary, detective carrying over book to book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff that he does that is a little bit different is in terms of solving it right then and there, the tactics, because it's still clue based, but a lot of his stuff is more about getting people to talk, the psychology of the murderer to uncover information from people, and he also acts like a ignorant foreigner or plays up his angles or lies about his past to get people to reveal things.
Mm-hmm,
It's much more
mm-hmm.
about that psychological subterfuge and interrogation than here's a clue, here's a clue, here's a clue, like you said, running around
Yes.
London trying to figure it out.
Getting in the car.
Right. Which I don't know if you saw the new stuff, if that's still upheld in the sense of it's a closed off location.
So what I really like about the two of them now is because they do use the setting. It is still very closed off, and
Yeah.
it is doing a lot with the idea of we're in the room where it happened, nobody move. I mean, it really is harkening down on that. It does expand a bit. If people have seen the first one, the train breaks down and they have to do a little bit outside the train, but
Mhm.
generally you're staying on the train and it's about the scenic route that you're on and
Yeah.
getting to that destination. Very much so like this one, it's a steamboat and you're traveling down the Nile as the murderers happen.
Yeah.
So they really lean into the setting as well on this one, and in this one in particular, it's a big contrast from like the snowy mountains and the wilderness of the Orient Express. This one we're in Egypt. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. I hadn't thought. As it was playing, I was trying to think back to the last time I'd seen like a period Egypt film.
Yeah.
So they definitely lean into things that we haven't seen, big set pieces and colors and cultures that we haven't really seen too much of at this scale.
Yeah.
I think they were planning to do a big IMAX
Right.
big visual release, and maybe because of it being this comfort
Yeah, cozy
Yeah,
fiction.
cozy fiction, because it might work better at night on my couch. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
hate to say that as a film guy, but like honestly, I think it might be true. I think
yeah.
at the same time, I think people are it still was is going to find its audience because it plays better in this setting. To be quite frank.
And it is interesting that it does do a little, because it is film, has to do it a little differently. Novels are cozy and we're in one place and it's more deducing. And like you said, there's a murder slash murders. It's not without its drama.
And we
Yeah.
get to see this big scope for just a moment, and then we go to our boat, and then the boat is going to dock somewhere, and then we get another chance to take a breath and take another. They go to
Interesting. Yeah.
they go to another big monument on the Nile. I mean, it's an incredible chance to get off the boat. It feels like you're stretching your legs for a second, and then a little piece of action happens, and they go, "Oh, danger!" and they get back on the boat, basically. So it's
Yeah.
it's really put together in a way that I think lulls you through what would become otherwise a little monotonous, sitting in a room with a bunch of people going, "Who did it?"
Or just straight up Indiana Jones action
Right, and that doesn't work
careening
because
down the
these are
side.
all
Yeah.
old people. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of old people in this movie, like, and that's okay.
Well,
But
and from
like,
the
that's
start,
not.
yeah, from the start,
It's not
Poirot,
an action film.
yeah,
It's a mystery, you know.
he starts in this first mysterious affair at Styles. He's retired, and he's got, like
Yes.
he. Now that's the other thing too, in terms of connecting it to the time and place. He comes from Belgian refugees
Hmm.
during World War One, so that's why he's there. That's why he's at this,
Hmm. Hmm.
because he's being taken in. And so it's like it also was very sort of patriotic in a sense to express sympathy to Belgium and explain why he would
Hmm.
be out of sorts and solving
Absolutely.
mysteries at this English country house. So that also was another thing where it was like,
I have to say the
yeah.
prologue, there's a black and white prologue that sets all that up in World War One. It's got some of the most striking cinematography I've seen in a movie this
Oh.
year, and I'm absolutely shocked that it's in this one. It looks like you're watching black and white classic film. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous, but it does not. I've thought for real for at least a couple seconds, and maybe I'd clicked on the wrong title.
No.
But what they do with that piece of it is really interesting. And there's another point I want to bring up later about this prologue idea.
Yeah, we will hold that bit for when we get to the more modern movie stuff. Like I said, he was the biggest detective that she kept in with 33 novels, 50 short stories.
So
Yeah.
okay, so this is one of her biggest properties, but
Yeah.
how many other characters were similar? Why?
Yeah.
That's one of the other things I'm wondering is like, well, what are the other characters that are like this that she had but didn't? Why did he keep on? You
Well,
know?
so there's another one, Miss Marple, which I regret that
Mm,
we can't get into. She was in
yeah.
some short stories in 1927. She's an opposite, basically, elderly spinster who solves crimes in her village life, and she's very nosy. She appeared in 12 novels and 20 stories. And like I said, we can't even get into this. 6 main feature films, TV films,
Lord.
BBC TV show from 84 to 92, which adapted all of her stories. And then there was another series, more modern, from 2004 to 2013. There's, I think, at least 3 or 4 other detectives that are also
Wow.
that also have their own smaller chains of novels. But Poirot and Miss Marple are the biggest two. And Miss Marple, that's that's basically all we can say about her without running out of time. But yeah, she is another extreme moneymaker with dozens of works and adaptations all over the place. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
but
Because I
yeah,
ask this because there's a meme going around where they've used a piece of her critique of her own character as dialogue in this film, diegetically from one of the characters critiquing him.
oh
So it's Agatha
yeah.
Christie's critique of her own character out of a character in the movie's mouth.
What is? Do
Uh,
you remember what it is? That
Right.
was hers.
It
Yeah.
She kind of goes on as a monologue, but it ends with a bombastic, egocentric little freak. If that gives you any idea of like she detests this character. So I'm sitting here going like, okay, so they put this in as a quote from Agatha Christie as this dialogue, but she kept writing this character and
Yeah.
she had other characters. So I'm just curious as to why you would keep writing a
Yeah.
character that you despise that
So it's
much.
very much, I don't know if you remember with Conan Doyle and Sherlock, he grew really tired of him and then killed him, and then
Yeah,
people
yeah. You can't do that.
unsubscribe. Yeah. So she very much like by the 1930s, this is from her diary. She said that he was insufferable, Poirot. And
Right.
then that quote is from her diary in the 60s. And
Mm.
so she didn't kill him because she's also very attuned to the business of it and being like, people like him
Yeah. Okay.
and it works well enough to keep going. But her as an author is tired of him, but she just kept doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's more of a business.
Sometimes you got to pay the bills. You know what I mean? You got a good thing going, and you can give it to the people, and the people want it. Sometimes maybe you got to deliver. I don't know. There's a whole. What's the Stephen King movie? God, I
Misery,
can't remember.
where
Misery.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the struggle.
It
Just
is the
write
struggle.
write it the way we want it.
Yeah. So speaking of the writing and what she wanted, her style, along with the mystery, whodunit, closed, cozy fiction,
Mhm.
the consciousness of England at the time. So interestingly, most of her stuff features a huge lack of pubs because she never smoked or drank
Interesting.
anything.
Okay. Yeah.
So that very much. And then she's also quite averse to violence. So it's mostly the poisoning stuff where it's found later. There's not
Yeah.
murdering right in front of everyone's face, slicing their head
Right.
off. Yeah, it's none of that. Although some of the other detective stuff, that's the thrill, is how grisly the killing was and who could do such a heinous thing. That's not as much her stuff. And then the motivation that ends up being the reason people kill is often money, because that was a concern for her family when her father died in her adolescence. So even though
Okay.
it's, she was living
There
the
you
high
go,
life,
yeah.
there was still very much, how are we going to get through this? And then with that, the class consciousness, which is what people perceive as being very British, the Englishness. It's how all the characters interact with each other. For example, in one piece, there's a servant who brings the police into the dining room rather than the drawing room because police are an in-between status. They're not gentlemen and they're not commoners. And so all of that kind of air of class consciousness is people not in England are getting all of these sensibilities from her work that she is either satirizing in some points, which adds to the humor, or pointing out as strange or whatever it might want to be.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, I'm thinking about the crime genre, the detective genre.
Yeah.
The way that she's moved it in the room and the way that she's able to retell the same story in the room so many times, the way that she's able to reinvent that magic trick, walk you around the magic trick so many times that you should be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm struck at how endless it feels like you could really reconfigure that Rubik's Cube into something that was satisfying by the end, and how she's really the one to kind of show you that trick in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm just fascinated. Not only does it work in her writing, but it works on stage, and it works in that medium punched up to accentuate what works in that medium. And the same is true in film. What you can do, how you can tell a story and clue people in. I mean, you really should be able, a good director, and I'm sure Kenneth has done this, is you should be able to, after the fact, rewatch this movie and see, oh, look, he's giving you the clue right here in this shot. Look, you didn't even notice that that's in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's smart. Yeah, that all these different things have different,
or overt things. Like, I didn't understand what the close-up on the paint was supposed to be about. Oh my God, he was telling me overtly, and I just didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this idea of, I mean, look, it works on stage, it works on film, it works as a game. I love Clue.
Yeah. So with two things to that. I haven't read, all of her works, obviously, but I know that she killed off her Watson. Well, not killed him off, but like the Watson-esque character got married off. So there isn't this equivalent secondary character, because that's usually what happens with Sherlock Holmes, is he is explaining it as it's going on to Watson and connecting the dots.
Exactly.
And that's,
come on, Watson, while they get in the car and go across
you idiot,
town,
this is what happened. Yeah.
But, obviously.
But with her Poirot series, you as the audience are trying to do all of that, and then when he explains it all, that's why people like it, because it's this tension and release. But then also you're like, I should have done that while he was doing it, but I did not.
It's fun because with a Sherlock story, I'm gonna meet the killer in the last 5 seconds, and I've never met him.
Right. Yeah.
And her stuff is so much fun, is because it kind of has this kind of the format, the rules of it are overt. It just happened. They're in the room with us. Like, we know that they are amongst us. It is detectable. We can figure this out, and that gets an active audience really going when when you're implored that, oh man, there's a little game here, and I can figure it out before the movie tells me.
Yeah.
That gets people to lean in.
And then, second thing, speaking of the game stuff, so Cluedo for non-US, and then Clue was developed not by her, this guy Anthony Pratt, during the air raids on Birmingham in World War II in England. He was a musician and a fan of the murder mystery games, the dinner theater stuff. His clients, when he's playing the music at these events, and also obviously Agatha Christie fiction. So he patented this board game, and then it got licensed in 1949, and thus becomes the cause of it was a mixture of those things.
Yes. It's just such a different thing than like, well, obviously he did it because his father left him, but we just got introduced to him 5 seconds ago. Dumb Watson, didn't you know?
Yeah.
With her stuff, we know the pieces are all here. We just have to put it together. And if we're paying attention enough, we know that the storyteller is giving us the clues along the way.
Yeah, and as we go through some of her other works here and some strange stuff in her life, you'll see how she is messing around with that form, because how do you do it 66 novels and a bunch of short stories, like how it can't always be always be who you think it is,
right.
You have to triple reverse red herring something, so we'll get into some of that, but just we're still on her first book that she did that people liked, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. She gets a 5-book deal from that, which she thought she got the raw end of. So from here on out, the business type stuff. She's like, I want my money, I want control, all that. She also is doing short stories for The Sketch magazine. She went on a 10-month promo tour for the British Empire exhibition with her husband, who is the officer, military stuff, but it's promoting the British Museum and all the stuff that they stole and all, that kind of thing. So travel, she goes all over the world. She goes to South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, Canada.
Wow.
One of the weirdest claims to fame with her is she's one of the first British people to surf standing up, because very few people had visited Hawaii, and there she, upon her travels, learned to surf, and then also hung like
yes. Oh my God, Agatha Christie is
she's
wicked.
She's
cowabunga,
curious and exploratory.
Did she ever write a murder mystery at a hotel in Hawaii?
She was writing during this time. Yeah, I mean, very much could have been the case. But one of the things that happened close to this time frame, her mom passes away in April of 1926. This hits her horribly because, like I said, she was essentially an only child, and then her father died. So it was a lot of her and her mom teaching her at home. She goes away to another village. This was reported, she's trying to recuperate on her own. In August of 26, her husband, Archie, wants a divorce. He's classic fallen in love with the secretary.
No.
So 12 years of marriage they've been together when he decides this is what he wants.
My God.
In December of 26, reminds me of the Righteous Gemstone stuff. She disappears. She's gone.
No, really? Here we go. Okay.
Real life, gone.
No way.
Her car is found parked above this quarry, and in it is an expired driver's license and clothes that were packed. And so, chaos.
What yarn are you spinning me now? This just turned into a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, so they're insane. 1,000 police, 15,000 volunteers, airplanes, which they'd never used before. This is front page on the New York Times.
Agatha Christie's car was found at the edge of the wood line with her clothes inside.
Missing. So many thousands of people scanning the countryside. They get guess who? Arthur Conan Doyle, even though he's not a detective, he's a novel writer,
he's on the case.
But if you remember, what's weird is he was super into like the paranormal and spiritualism. So he gave one of her gloves to a spirit medium to help try and that was his effort in this search.
I love this. They're sitting there like harnessing the power of the glove.
Yeah. 10 days they could not find her. and
What?
no way to know where she would be.
Oh my God.
A hotel band member, one of the saxophonist from a hotel 184 miles north of her home, still in England, called the police and said, "Yeah, I think she's here. I think this woman who's coming to watch our show every night looks like her." Uh, they go over there. It is her. She
Hey, she's just here every night getting loaded and she doesn't pay.
well, actually, no, she doesn't drink.
No,
She
I'm just
doesn't. Yeah.
kidding.
That's what's weird.
I'm just-
Yeah. Yeah. So what is weird is that she registered under the name of Mrs. Tressa Neal, which was the last name of her husband's secretary, the lover. Neal was
Whoa.
the name, and
Ouch.
she just goes back on with her life. The divorce ends up getting filed 2 years later. But what's
What? So they just drag her back to her life?
I mean, what's crazy is, so her autobiography makes no mention of any of this. It's just
What?
completely
So you faked your death and then just got hauled back to reality.
well, so this is, I mean,
I'm just gonna forget about it.
this is one of the craziest conspiracies about her, because doctors
I
at the
love
time,
this.
they diagnose it as genuinely loss of memory. It was like a fugue state. Like, she just had these horrible things happen to her really, really close in time within the span of a couple months, and then just walked out and had no idea what she was doing. And then
Wow.
the other side of it is, of course, all the myriad conspiracies, is that she was trying to embarrass her husband by framing him, didn't get the result.
Well, I wonder immediately because I went ooh when the secretary's name is the name that she gives, because that definitely made it into the papers.
Yeah.
And so I feel like she's smart enough to know. That was my first reaction, and I think she's definitely smart enough to know that as soon as she's probably waiting to be found.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's
that
so
all
much.
of that can get reported.
There's so much. Yeah, I mean, somebody
That's
also was like,
fascinating.
it could have been a car accident, and then that's gave her brain damage or something, and because she took the train 184 miles up to this hotel, it was like very much, or it was a publicity stunt and whatnot.
I mean, regular people don't get reported about. You know what I mean? So like when suddenly your name is in the paper, like, oh, by accident, like, oh, she used my name. I'm the mistress of her husband. You know what I mean? And like, I'm reading it in the paper. That's what I saw in my mind.
So it is, yeah, this is if you want to go on to Unsolved whatever on YouTube, Agatha Christie, you'll find this kind of stuff.
God.
But
it's big, so good.
We don't know.
Be up all night.
There's also a really good, I got some of my stuff. There's a great drunk history from Comedy Central.
Really?
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst plays Agatha Christie.
No way.
If you've ever seen those, I'll put links in the show notes. But also,
if anybody is new here, check out our show notes. They're always really, really fun. And if we mention it in the show, most of the time it's always there, and it's always a laugh. It's always good. It's always fun. It's always going to brighten your day. If you ever like this stuff, we got more content for you to go see.
Yeah. One of the other things that was affiliated with this, it became a feature-length film called Agatha in 1979.
Lord.
Features Vanessa Redgrave, Dustin Hoffman. And
does it end with them
Dalton
finding her at the show and going like, my name is whatever the mistress name?
It was, yeah, I don't know how it was mired in controversy because, of course, the estate sued and said, you cannot have your take on what you think happened, but it ended up getting made. And I guess leading all of this, kind of like what's going on with the writing in all of this span of time. I mean, this was a short span of time, but like, she had her 5-book deal. The reason the New York Times was front page and so many people was because her 6th book had just come out before this, which some people call her greatest work of all time. The Crime Writers Association, 600 people, said it's the best whodunit ever written.
Wow.
The title may not be familiar to you. The Murder of Roger Aykroyd.
No.
Came out in 26. In the midst of, or shortly before.
The Murder of Dan Aykroyd.
Spiritualist leader, yeah. The reason it got a bunch of controversy on its release is because it did something not usually done in this genre, which is the unreliable narrator, which nobody saw coming. So
no way.
So here
she did it. She did it.
So here's, and sorry for anybody. I mean, this came out in 26. I didn't know about it, but it helps to understand what's going on. So, spoiler from a thing 100 years ago.
Plug your ears.
The murderer is the local doctor who tells the story and is essentially the Watson character to Poirot.
Incredible.
And so this was crazy that the Watson-esque
She changed
sidekick
the game again.
is the killer. Her 6th book. Oh, the sidekick is the killer? And also what got people is, yeah, he's narrating it, but he technically didn't write anything untrue. Like, you could have known. He didn't lie the entire time he was
Wow.
narrating it. So he was just unreliable, or was withholding, or was explaining things in a certain
Yeah.
way. And so this thing that came out that people went crazy for, it's why she had so much attention on her then when she disappeared.
Wow.
And so it's also why then after this, she hates media. She makes no public appearances, no interviews. She doesn't even have her picture on the book jacket for a long period of time. She doesn't want anybody to know who she is, where she is, what she looks like. But this book, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, is 6th book in. She's changing the game, throwing people for a loop.
I mean, for real.
Yeah.
Just another mic drop, another number one.
What can you expect?
And it feels so, when you say it, it feels so simple.
Mhm.
It's so obvious, but nobody saw it coming. It's incredible. I just to experience that when that first happened,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that gets adopted. It becomes a trope.
Yeah.
It's, it's old hat nowadays, but then that first one drops and people are like tearing their hair out at the end.
Yeah, because you think, oh, it's all the suspects, but it's like, well, now anybody.
My God!
Yeah. So after this disappearance and craziness, and then the divorce gets finalized in 1928, she basically has her eat, pray, love moment and says, I'm going off on my own. I'm traveling alone.
Do it.
What does she take?
You deserve it.
Yeah. What does she do but take famed train, the Orient Express, to Istanbul, Baghdad? Yeah. She's going out. She's saying, I want to see the stuff that I didn't appreciate as a kid. I was too young and spoiled. She's going with this friend, archaeologist and wife, goes out for digs, goes out on another dig.
Aww.
She's checking out the scene. This is where she meets this couple's friend, Max Malawan, in Iraq, and they marry in 1930, shortly after.
Okay,
and they stayed married until her death in 1976. So this is her husband. And she travels.
Incredible.
Yeah, she travels with him on many of his digs. Lots of her novels then, thus forth, are set in the Middle East or train travel. Murder on the Orient Express. She took it a bunch. So
I love it.
Yeah. This is then you could see, oh, she's imbuing that it's not just the English country house. It's the barge on the Nile, and it's the train going to the Orient.
Istanbul.
Yeah,
yes,
Istanbul.
Exactly. Beautiful. I mean, where you can take the bedroom where the murder just happened anywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a key right there. Understanding how long it took her to actually travel to then understand the value of that in her work.
Yeah.
Because it really, I mean, she's changing the game, and then she's like, what if I took it to Africa? What if I took it to the Orient?
Yeah.
Again, it seems so obvious, but I'm like, at the time, it's so revolutionary. But when you bring it down to, well, it's simple changes.
Yeah.
It's looking at, well, here are the pieces. How do I rearrange them? And then what are the pieces that are underestimated? What are the pieces that everybody says is a given? Well, how can I flip that really simply?
Yeah, exactly. It's very much...
To her, she's probably like, this is ridiculous. I am doing no work. But
right.
Like, to us, it's incredible. I mean, and when it's being done for the first time, it's absolutely incredible. To her, she sees how the sausage is made. And she's just like, well, it's a Rubik's Cube.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we finally get into some of the adaptation film world. This is happening 1928 when she gets the divorce and decides to go. The first film adaptation, which is based on a short story of hers, The Passing of Mr. Quinn, silent film, lost. Nobody can't see it, whatever. But it also, and sucks that it's the first thing, because it really does sour. It's like the opposite of what she wrote. It's her Mr. Quinn is a romantic figure who solves the mystery of this guy Appleby's suicide. But in this silent film, he is an alcoholic and is Appleby's murderer. But so it's like nothing like what she had even wrote in it.
Yeah.
And then, And then in 1931, The Alibi, which was the murder of Roger Ackroyd, but it's just called The Alibi. This became a film in 1931, and this one is also lost to history.
And for our audience, because I don't expect that everybody's with us all the
Yeah.
time, but we've covered a few of these things where some of these films are lost to time. And if you didn't know, there is an absorbent amount of material that is just lost in the
Uh-huh.
medium, and an incredible amount of films that were made and produced at the advent of the medium that were just lost, totally lost, mostly to fire. But
Yeah.
um, it's something that we come across every once in a while on these things, and just it's not a light thing when we say that. It's like it is one of the overwhelming numbers of lost films from the early
Yeah.
days.
So it's a shame that you can't know really what it was that was so bad about this, except some, posters and maybe a
Really
loose plot. Yeah.
flammable, really flammable film stock.
That's what did it in.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
What wasn't flammable was the live action stuff, the play. You like that? The
Nice.
the
Thank you.
the the play adaptation. So this Murder of Roger Ackroyd was adapted by somebody else in 28, and she disliked it, the
Mm,
play version, which
mm,
then became the Alibi film.
mm.
So she said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." So this is where she becomes the adapter for the plays.
Yes.
So she
Yes.
did, and then there were none.
Finally.
Witness
I
for the
love it.
Prosecution, which then became a huge film in the 50s. The Mousetrap, which is the one that is still ongoing,
Yes.
lasted the
Yes.
longest. Also, another crazy big stat. She's the only female playwright to have 3 plays simultaneously in the West End,
Oh man.
adaptations of her books.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we need more,
Yeah.
but wow,
Yeah. So you think, oh, she just did the books. No, she's also running the game on the plays
man.
and those versions. Jump with me back to Egypt and the Orient Express and
Yes.
whatnot. Murder on the Orient Express is in 34. And like you're saying, this seems revolutionary, but even then, she knows things got to be changed around. So, Cards on the Table is one of the books that comes out in 36. And she
Okay.
knew one of the tendencies is like, oh, the unlikeliest character is going to be the one to do it. We all
Mhm.
know that. So, granted, now this is hard to believe, but this Cards on the Table is her 23rd book. It doesn't seem like
Good
we've talked
God.
about that much, but by this point, and this is, I'll quote directly from the foreword at the beginning, she said, "Spot the person least likely to have committed the crime, and in 9 times out of 10, your task is finished. Since I do not want my faithful readers to fling this book away in disgust, I prefer to warn them beforehand that this is not that kind of book." So,
I mean, good. She's there. She is. She's working on the assumed
yeah.
rules here, and she's giving a warning that if you go by those rules, you will miss out. And it's just one simple, one little rule, one little
Yeah.
reminder.
And the business side of things too. It's like you have a loyal fan base who's following this detective. Don't let him down. Set him
Mhm.
up. So
Mhm.
yeah, Death on
Mhm.
the Nile comes in 37 the next year, which is what this one is based on.
Yes.
And then this will be some of the scandal stuff. 39, her 1939, her best-selling book comes out, and then there
Mm.
were none, which maybe you've heard of
What?
before. That's the title of the book, and then there were none.
Oh, I was like, no, that's not the last one.
No, no. So that it's her best-selling one. What is crazy about it? She really changed everything.
No.
No detective, no interview of suspects, no careful search for clues, no suspects gathered and shown the solution. They all just get picked off one by one
Oh.
until there are none left.
Oh
It's pretty
no.
nihilistic. Yeah.
Oh no.
Um, Hugely successful.
So is it from the killer's point of view, based almost? I don't. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. From an arm's
Well, there's
distance.
an
I'm going like,
epilogue
oh,
that
you
then
said that
explains. Yeah,
countdown.
there's an
Yeah,
epilogue that
yeah.
explains how this all happened. Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Okay,
it one of the things.
that's an out there
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
That not such a just a tiny change. What number book is this? 30. What
So,
you
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
it took a while. It took a while. That this one is one of those avant garde experiments.
And it is her
Okay.
best selling.
Boom,
Yeah.
baby.
Although, so I'm not going to say it because it's horrible, but the original title uses very racist language
No,
because it's
no,
based on
no.
a minstrel show rhyme. So
Uh,
not even like in 39 when it came out, not
yeah.
released in the US with that title.
Uh,
And with that, so racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, even though she's setting them in these places, her descriptions of characters, especially before
no,
1945, not good, particularly Jewish
no.
descriptions. And some
Oh
people may
no.
say it's a satire, it's a whatever, it's a this, but it all goes without, we're talking about something from the past.
Not good.
Yeah, if you go check out these books and even look up this on Wikipedia, the title is not at all what you'd want it to be. The original title, it's unfortunate that with all of the stuff that she did, she has all of that in her books as well.
Well, we're bringing you the truth, ladies and gentlemen. We're not sugarcoating it here.
Yeah. So that's the controversy leading up to. It does change a little bit after World War II, which is where we're at now. And she's in the war effort, worked again at a pharmacy in the University College Hospital. Here you go. More poison knowledge, more different ways to quietly kill people. So
I like when things like the clue is in the specific type of device used is only found in this culture in this segment of the world. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, well, they would have only known about that pathogen if they studied in Indonesia in 1921.
Yeah. So one of those things, this is a suggestion from the chief pharmacist, which is hilarious, becomes her book, The Pale Horse, which comes out in 1961. This was, like you're talking about, If Only You Knew. So 3 things. In 1971, there was this serial killer that was caught, Graham Frederick Young. He was known as the teacup poisoner. The deaths occurring was the same cause because people thought, oh, this is an illness that's spreading around this factory. And they thought he must have gotten info from this book because to the layman, unless you are a chief pharmacist, this is exactly how you would poison people with thallium of all things. Who knows where that is or how to get that. So
this is an example of somebody reading it and doing it?
Potentially. I mean, there's no direct, he didn't have it on his nightstand, but in the prosecution, they were like, look at this, or the defendant, it was very much
That's interesting.
Thrown in.
I mean,
although,
that's the evolution of that argument is when you get to Columbine and Scream. So
right, yeah, very much. It's like who. But on the positive side, in 1975, a couple years later, Agatha Christie got a letter from this woman in Latin America who said that she saved another woman who had been poisoned by her husband because she read this book and knew the symptoms and what was happening. Then same thing 2 years later in 1977, there was another poisoning case solved by a nurse who had read the book and recognized these weird symptoms in this baby. And it was thallium poisoning, which is
so perhaps it's maybe that's an argument there to say that maybe you're spreading the knowledge to a degree. Yes, somebody might try it that wouldn't have, but then you're spreading it so far and wide that then it's got so much sunlight on it that nobody would ever even try that because they know what to look for because everybody knows that now. You know what I mean? You just put so much sunlight on the thing that then it becomes really impossible.
And it was a thing that you could get. So it was used, though people didn't know because it was one of the things in a readily available rat poison. So then that created legislation to be like, well, we can't do this because.
Well, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. So I wonder that to further that, how many people would, it's an unknowable, but how many people were surreptitiously murdered that way before she wrote the novel? She figured that out from somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's like her doing that. Well, it might have got the one guy that tried it. It seems like putting that much sunlight on it kind of made that not so possible anymore. People know about that.
Although I guess we should all know about it. It was used in Spectre, the most recent James Bond movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, continues on.
No, the one before, not the most recent. That was the one before. We just did No Time to Die, Taylor. We can't. No, talk about that.
Rounding out her success leading into this point, by the late 1950s, she is earning around £2.4 million. This is in 2020 money per year, which I would love to earn £2.4 million a year. But in the 1950s, she's earning this.
Yeah.
Her last book was in 1973, and she died 3 years later. Interestingly, in her obituary, it was stated that she never cared much for cinema, wireless, or television. One of her last public outings was the 1974 Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of the modern international revitalization. She liked it. This and Witness for the Prosecution were the only films that she liked. Both of those got a bunch of nominations and wins for the Oscars. And I guess a big piece of it is changing. Maybe you could speak to some of this, but like Poirot, like with film, you kind of got to have some backstory, and they make him a bit more.
I'm seeing a trend with sequels that feel pressured to have a prologue that,
Yeah.
to give a little bit of an insight as to why this character might be this way, that, you know, for the rest of the movie to end up the way it does. It seasons the thematics for most of the movie. We start with this prologue that's usually some sort of like prequel-esque.
Uh-huh.
And I was kind of taken when this one did that as well. And it does so much because it draws down on this character getting critiqued, as we already covered. And so you can't do that without actually kind of, well, who is this guy, and why would he be driven to do this for a living?
Yeah.
Because this is ridiculous. How many times is he supposed to almost die? I want to see that if we're going to go do this prologue stuff, I want to see that stuff be more meaningful by the end. I want to see it be part of the turn. I want to see it. I want to go back to it. I feel like these movies never go back to it. And I don't understand, because if it's supposed to season the thematics all the way through, it should be relevant enough that you could go back to it at the precise moment and everybody would understand maybe, it lends this clue to this piece of momentum that unlocks the answer. I want to see that, and I don't think I've quite seen that.
Yeah. It's tough because, like we were saying, this character is so, you have to give potentially more than what the novels are giving.
Right.
And so that's what was interesting to me, as far as 88 was the last theatrical, from what I could tell, that this character was given. So it's been 30 plus years. It's been relegated to, in England, TV series, which I think fit more of the serialized, or it's like you can have a more gradual change with people or highlight certain things. That's what was big. But Agatha Christie's Poirot had been going on for 25 years, from 1989 to 2013. And perhaps maybe there is some of that in there. And there, I guess there's another one of these that they're doing.
I mean, he just won Best Adapted Screenplay for Belfast. It looks like that this one, I haven't seen rave reviews, but I think that generally people who are excited about this type of movie, this genre of movie, there's a lot to like here, and I haven't heard any like hardline nose negative. I think there's definitely some things about it I don't like, but for that, there's a lot of things about it that I do like. So I got to take the if with the ands and go, hey, pretty good.
I'm surprised that there hadn't been one since the 80s that was a feature film.
I will be interested to see what they might do next, given what titles there are. I would like to see a very different setting and set piece. Okay, so we've been on a boat, we've been on a train. Can we do this? Can we do this in the air? I'm just like, I want to look through the material and be like, well, what's got the really interesting other place that we could do this that would add a lot to it? Because I thought that the Egyptian added a lot of different elements to it, a lot of fun visuals to it that weren't in Orient. Orient had its own flavor. I would like to see the next one have another very distinct, exotic feeling flavor.
Well, let's throw it out to the audience. If you know, because I didn't look into coolest, weirdest place that she said something. And if you are an Agatha Christie fan, reach out to us.
What would you do?
At IlliteratePod on Instagram. What place should they set a movie in? What is the coolest story?
What Agatha Christie story has the best setting that they should do next?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Taylor.
Yeah.
This was a mountain of work. We could go. This could have been a 4-parter on Agatha Christie, but this was a good flyby. It's something that, again, we needed to do Agatha while she was hip and current and relevant, and not wait until they do the next one in the rainforest.
Yeah, 30 years from now. Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Taylor. Yeah. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Really appreciate it. Do us a favor. Rate us. Wherever you listen to us, give us that star rating, whatever you think we're worth. If you think we're worth 5, thank you so much. But give us that rating. You don't know what it does for us. And if there's ever an idea you got for a show, something coming out you're excited about, a book you read that you loved. We got an idea this past week, Pachinko, incredible suggestion, and we're very heavily considering it. Just want to wink. Thank you so much. If there's ever anything that you think would make a great episode, don't hesitate, at IlliteratePod on Instagram, and we would love to talk to you. We will see you here right back next week. We'll have the facts. You got to have the ears, and we'll be ready.
All right. See you then.